the
economic
ability to
growth
put
is not high enough to offset
stuff
the
on
decrease in revenue.
on Facebook with your camera?
It's never been the case in the last 30 years. Supply side
Not
economics
directly.
has been a failure.
It hasn't been a failure because it hasn't failed to generate revenues.
In terms of
The problem
revenue.
is spending.
Yeah, but
Right, that's the problem. And here's the problem that Reagan had. Okay, in order for him to get his increased defense spending, which is what the government is supposed to do anyway.
yeah,
Okay, it's not supposed to give us RU 486 pills, the morning after pills, and provide them to people. That's what the government's not supposed to do.
Right.
Okay, that's what
The Medicare was passed in 1965.
Correct.
So.
Where show me in the Constitution where it says that you're supposed to, that Congress has that power. It's nowhere written in the
Doesn't it say in the
Constitution.
Constitution you're supposed to get $15 for every slave?
No.
I think it does.
No.
Yeah.
No.
For people who were imported in the country.
No. No. There was compensation given to slave owners in the border states as part of the Emancipation Proclamation, but I don't know how much it was. I want to say that it was a hefty chunk of change, like about $800 per slave in the border states.
Well,
Because if you look at, I've got the Emancipation Proclamation somewhere downstairs, the whole thing. And there was, yes, there was compensation given to slaveholders in Maryland, in Kentucky, and in Delaware, but there were only like 2,000 slaves in Delaware.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, they were a border state. So we had Delaware, Maryland, Kentucky, and Missouri. So yeah, they were compensated for their slaves. They were. But all the slaves that were in reconquered states got their freedom on the 1st of January, 1863.
Yeah, but
And
I forget which amendment, but one of them is.
Well, I think you're making the mistake of the 13th Amendment, which ended slavery. Okay?
Well,
there was no compensation given. The only thing the 13th Amendment did is it outlawed slavery. And it is one of the two pieces of, I won't say legislation, but parts of the Constitution that calls for the death penalty. Slavery is one of them. You know what the other one is?
Treason.
Treason. Violent overthrow of the United States government.
Yeah.
So that's treason.
But I mean, since 1980, because the tax rate's so low, the tax rate was decreased during Kennedy.
Correct.
It offset the decrease in taxes. The revenue was offset by the increase in revenue.
Correct.
But the increase in the economic activity, which produced
Correct.
more revenue.
Which it did. And then by 1965, the Democrats started to raise taxes.
No, it didn't.
1965 it did. That budget is, you better believe it did.
No, the federal taxes decreased from 1950 to 19. It steadily decreased until 1992. In 1989.
Well, 1990, President Bush went along and made a deal with the devil, with the Democrats and the Congress, to raise taxes.
No, he. This is funny. When he ran for the presidential primary in 1980.
No new taxes. Read my lips. No new taxes.
In 1980, he disagreed with Reagan.
Reagan called it voodoo economics.
Yeah.
Yes, I know.
He thought that the only way to pay for debts was to raise taxes because supply side economics wouldn't work. And he's absolutely right.
Yeah.
They haven't worked.
No. Then you cite me the last example that any country ever taxed itself into prosperity. It didn't work in the Great Depression.
Yes, it did.
No, it didn't.
In 1937.
No, it didn't. Our economy did not recover until fiscal year 1942. A year into World War II. Before our economy recovered, and it did not get back to 1929 levels until 1946.
Who paid for World War II? Private corporations?
Well, we all paid for
Did you know
World
what the
War
top
II
marginal rate in 1942? You know what the top marginal rate income taxes
I
were?
would just take a wag, I'd say it'd be 70%.
90.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And when Kennedy lowered it, he lowered it the top marginal rate from 90 to 77.
Yeah. But he also gave a general overall tax cut for middle income wage earners.
Yeah, went from 16% to 13 or something
yeah.
like that.
And he's the last Democratic president that sought and got the tax cut.
No, actually
last one.
Obama did it too. Do you know what part of the stimulus package was? A third of it was funded by tax cuts. Because you have to factor that into actually.
How can it be funded by tax cuts?
Because it's money that's not being received. So in a sense, it is effectively a cost. So part of the cost is associated with the stimulus.
Yeah, but he never paid for one penny of it. The $872
It was
billion.
deficit spending, correct.
Correct. They didn't pay for one penny of it. Just like this $34 billion, it's going to for unemployment benefits from 99 weeks now to 121 weeks.
Look, debt as a percentage of GDP is still less now than it was under Reagan.
No.
And also, you got to listen to this real carefully. The federal stimulus bill that was passed the other year,
which still has $410 billion to be spent,
was a third of it was cuts, tax cuts.
Okay.
All right.
How many jobs did it create? We were told 650,000 shovel-ready jobs. Shovel-ready jobs in February of last year. Remember that?
I think it began, the net growth of jobs began in February, according to the CEO.
Yeah. According to the Messiah's webpage,
No.
670,000 jobs have been created.
The central budgeting office.
And you know how many we've lost since February of last year?
No, I don't know.
Yeah, we've lost 3.2 million jobs.
Yeah, but now there's an increase. Now there's a net increase every month.
Oh yeah. We lost 125,000 in the last week of June.
That's what happens in the worst recession in the last 80 years.
And it's being made the worst because of who's running it now. And wait till the tax hikes, wait till the Bush tax cuts end in January.
They need to end.
Okay, they need to end.
Actually,
we'll see what we're saying next year at this time. We'll see what great wonders that'll do.
Obama's proposal is to have the tax cuts end for people making over $250,000, but have the tax cuts stay in place for people making under $250,000. That's his latest proposal.
Oh yeah.
That's fiscally responsible.
Yeah, we'll see it.
I don't know.
See it. Everybody's taxes are going up on the 1st of January. No. If they don't go directly up with ending the Bush tax cuts, they'll go up with the Messiah Care expenses that will start going up.
Well,
that's when the 10% cuts of Medicare kick in. They start on the 1st of January.
Well, tax hikes under Medicare and Social Security have been going up every year via the increase in the cap on how much someone pays. Like in 2000, it was $87,000. And after 87, people made over $87,000 a year. They didn't have to pay any more Social Security and Medicare.
Right.
Every year, it's gone up about 4%.
Okay. Now, starting the 1st of January of next year, Medicare will be cut 10% starting next year.
Right.
Okay, and will continue for the next 9 years after that.
Yeah.
It'll be $49.3 billion a year cut.
But that's
Medicare.
That's wasteful government spending that you want to cut anyway. So what's the problem?
Well, it's not being done. We pay on average $80 to $125 billion to the crooks in waste, fraud, and abuse. There's a whole book written about it called "Stop Paying the Crooks." It's on my list of my hate literature.
But that doesn't. Look, waste, fraud, and abuse still wouldn't offset the increase in medical costs every year. It would decrease it by about 2%.
80 billion to 125 billion.
Look, I'm just quoting the CBO. Okay. Like
Just like the CBO numbers on the Messiah Care.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Garbage in, garbage out. The CBO only runs its projections on the numbers it gets. And the numbers that have come from the administration have been way too low. Way too low. Messiah Care in the next 10 years, Garrett, is going to be $2.4 trillion. And it all kicks in. In fact, some of the tax hikes have kicked in this summer.
Which ones?
I don't know which ones. They're supposed to be on employers.
Oh, on employers. Yeah, on Cadillac plans and stuff like that?
No, the Cadillac plans, let me see. Well, the union exemption for the Cadillac plans will not kick in until 2017.
Yeah.
This is when that was found out, the dirty deal that Rahm Emanuel and the Messiah people met with the big union guys.
No, it's to...
And kicked it around last year.
It was to be in accordance with the agreement that was previously made already, and that was already settled. That's why that was done.
Well, they walked up to the White House, Rahm Emanuel invites them into the Oval Office, They
Yeah.
sit down there.
Yeah, because
and
they
you
wanted
had-
to be
you
in
had Harry
accordance
Reid,
with...
you had dingy Harry Reid, and you had
Because they
who else
wanted-
from the House that was there?
Because-
David Obey from
I know all-
the guy who came up with the site.
Yeah, they're lawmakers. They were all there. But the reason
Yeah.
why those people were going there was because to make the healthcare legislation be in accordance with the agreement that was already previously agreed to between the unions and the federal government. That's why that meeting took place.
Yeah, and when, well, then why would they need to have any kind of meeting at all? Because the proposal first came out
because the
there.
healthcare legislation contradicted what was already previously agreed to.
Okay, who
So
previously agreed to
The
it?
union and the feds.
Okay, when?
A couple of years before the most recent union contract.
Well, the union contract would have nothing to do with the federal government, or anything that the government would, any legislation the government would pass.
No.
It has absolutely nothing to do with it. What the unions would come in, what the unions would have is what they would have with their employers. Like the AFL and CIO and the Teamsters and all the rest of them.
They have special they have little deviations from with the federal government. I can't remember exactly.
Well, they
what it
can't
was.
have anything. They can't have legislation that favors them, that only them, in some way or another. They can't do that.
I'll look into it, but it was because there was some sort of agreement made between the unions and the feds, indirectly or directly, and that's why
All
they
right.
met.
Well, the way the story goes, okay, here last March,
Yeah.
is that it came out that the Cadillac plans were going to be, there was going to be a $2,000 fee put on top of the Cadillac plans for the private sector and unions. And then the union guys squawked, the Teamsters, you know, all the mafia-connected labor union guys. And the AFL-CIO, the Teamsters.
You do know that the reason why I have such a good medical benefits is because of unions.
Okay, that's fine.
And you
See, and I say that's more power to you. If Boeing is willing to pay it for you, then okay, more power to you. I think that's great.
well they
But when the
pay
federal
it.
government comes along and says, you, Garrett, you're getting the benefit over somebody else, and you're going to get nailed with a $2,000 fee that you're going to have to pay for that Cadillac plan that you're not paying for. But where's that in the Constitution? You have a private
Where is
benefit
it not
with
in
a
the
private-
Constitution?
Well, no.
Constitution
That's not the way it works.
What do you mean?
If it's not in the Constitution, you cannot do it. Why do you think we have the 10th Amendment? You know what the 10th Amendment says?
Yeah, that argument was made in 1913 when people were arguing against the federal tax.
Yeah, the graduated income tax. You know where that comes from? You know who the biggest proponent was of the graduated income tax?
Karl Marx.
Very good.
Yeah,
Chapter and verse right out of the manifesto.
I know this.
Uh-huh.
It makes sense.
Oh, of course. Punish those